The judge is in the house. He's still running.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Former Supreme Court Justice Robert Flanders is a candidate for U.S. Senate running against Sheldon Whitehouse. He's been a guest here before. I'm guessing he'll make a couple more trips before the general election. And we're just kind of checking in with him to see how things are going in the campaign. I would imagine that Sheldon Whitehouse will be here sooner than later. We had him on the radio last week as he was I think righteously complaining about things Trump. But Flanders shouldn't be portrayed as one of those Trump, I don't know, what's the term I want to use, just, he's not under the trance of Trump by any stretch of the imagination. And I've often said that he would be a phenomenal senator. But there's only 2 spots. And Sheldon Whitehouse is an incumbent with a lot of dough and a lot of equity. Maybe not the favorability ratings that he would like to have. So is there a path? We'll talk about that coming up. In the meantime, I just wanted to mention something. You know, I on the radio yesterday, I got at this in a fairly in-depth fashion. The PAC deal is in real trouble. And there's a lot of you out there who think, well, you know what? I'm not going to predict what a lot of you think. I think the general public is a much more bullish want to see the PAC remain in Pawtucket than the loud crowd and some of the pundits out there would suggest. But some of the work that I've done on this indicates, and this is new intel, so to speak, the analogy would be that we are in the bottom of the 9th, the Paw Sox are down a handful of runs, and the 7, 8, 9 hitters are coming up. That's not something I made up. So what I'm telling you is that you better prepare for the idea that Rhode Island is about to lose a substantial cultural business in this state. And I just want to be able to say now that 18 months from now, when the vibe is, I can't believe we lost the Paw Sox, and all that kind of stuff, that we did everything we could here to raise this constituency to a level to suggest that you needed to keep this General Assembly honest, transparent, and active in this project. Worcester's deal is clean as a whistle and less expensive for the Paw Sox. The International League likes the Worcester deal. The ownership group with the Paw Sox is fed up to here with the lack of cooperation and culture problems in Rhode Island government. They love the synergy and the cooperation in Massachusetts. It will be hard to leave and 2 years worth of pain because I'm not sure they got an option to play in an interim place in Mass while they build a new stadium in the Canal District in Worcester. But Don Grebian, the Pawtucket mayor, has a Hail Mary pass or 2 to throw. I don't know, even if it's caught and slammed in the end zone, that it's going to win the ball game, because 2 things. The Apex deal has not been done yet, and eminent domain is always an ugly and long litigious process. And the truth of the matter is that the political comfort zone in Massachusetts versus Rhode Island is entirely different. So I'm guessing, this is not a prediction, something could happen to change this. Namely, the heads of state get together and try to rewire this deal, but that's slim and none, you know, the old adage. I would think by Labor Day we're going to find out that they are headed up Route 146. And it'd be a shame. That's what I think, anyway. Alrighty, so recently, maybe the judge has a thought on that, but here's the latest news. I don't know how we're supposed to read that, but that's a headline from his press release asking Sheldon Whitehouse to make a donation to the to the cause of term limits, which was, who came up with that one, Your Honor?
That was something I thought would be an honorable thing to do.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
No, no, that was a tongue-in-cheek thing, of course.
I want to talk to you about everything that is going on in the race right now. Do you ever thought at all about any of my remarks on the Paw Sox, just from a glance as a citizen?
Sure, as a citizen, as a former professional minor league ball player myself, I would love to see the Paw Sox stay here. I think but as you say, this is a business, and they're going to be looking at their costs, and if, as you say, and I'm not familiar with the details of this, but if the the Massachusetts deal is that much better, then they're going to have to think seriously about that. And you may be right; they may be pulling up stakes, because I don't see that the state here is going to go much further than they have in extending benefits to them.
Well, listen, you're running for federal office, and you know, if you go to Washington, you'll have to interact with the Rhode Island state government, obviously, bringing home the bacon, coordinating projects, all that kind of a thing. But for the most part, you'll be able to bypass what has really become kind of a tired, predictably cynical state government environment, in my mind. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's certainly what has been weighing down our government for as long as I can remember. And I do think we need more optimism. We've got reason to be optimistic. I think we've got a great state here. I'm running for Rhode Island. That's why I'm doing this, because I really love the state. It's enabled me to, in my way of thinking, embody the American dream, coming from little or nothing and being able to make something of myself. I want to see more of Rhode Island experience that kind of prosperity, realize their dreams, and achieve a better education for their children.
What are you hearing on the street? I mean, I'm not necessarily worried about issues specifically, but mood, temperament, disposition.
I think it's one of uncertainty. There's apprehension about the way the president lurches from one issue to another, and that breeds uncertainty. The world is uncertain. We've got crazy things going on in North Korea and elsewhere in the globe, Iran. So I think that
do people talk to you about that unsolicitedly, or is that something you raise as you're on the trail?
They don't. They talk to me about that as well. They are concerned about how we're dealing with our allies and what we're doing about China and Russia and the role that the Senate plays. But mostly Rhode Islanders, as you would expect, are focused on more bread and butter issues to themselves here. How do we afford health care in this state? Am I going to be able to retire gracefully and have enough money to do so? What about our roads and our bridges? How do we get those fixed? Immigration issues. These are the things that Rhode Islanders are concerned about, and that's why I think our existing Senator Whitehouse is so out of touch, because he's predominantly thinks about climate change, and while that's an important subject, I'm not sure that's what most Rhode Islanders talk about when they put their kids to bed or have dinner at night. So I think we need a senator that's focused on Rhode Island, helping Rhode Islanders get to a better place on all these big dot issues, as I like to call them, and that's why I'm running.
So what extricates Rhode Island from the pulse of Washington and the senatorial federal decisions that are made? This notion of specialization in your own home state is something I've been hearing from campaigners, politicians all my life, all my working life, that's for sure, and certainly as a constituent. But give me a concrete example of a U.S. senator who's more focused on the state. What does that mean? Give me a tangible feel for that.
Well, I think it means focusing on issues that are peculiar to your home state. Every state is different.
Do we have one that you think is really in your craw right now?
Well, I mentioned one earlier, infrastructure. We've got the worst roads and bridges in America.
Do you support the Roadworks program as the Raimondo administration has laid out?
I would support anything that helps, yes, anything that helps get us to a better place there. But we've got schools, we've got school security issues, we've got ports. We're the ocean state. We want to do things that would preserve our coastline and infrastructure there. So it's roads and bridges, yes, because we were just voted the worst place to take a road trip in America.
You think this tolling program was a good idea?
I would have preferred a way to pay for this that came out of the gas tax rather than tolling, focusing on just one segment of the population that uses our roads. I think this case that the truckers will bring has some legal merit as to whether they can.
Have you looked into it, or are you looking at it from afar?
Just from afar, but it seems to me they've got a colorful interstate commerce argument that they're focusing on just disproportionately on folks who come through Rhode Island rather than everybody that uses
TG,
the roads.
I will tell you, if you weren't running for U.S. Senate and occupied with that project, you'd be a great go-to guy to break down that litigation because of the way you're able to break down cases with your resume as it is. The state says that they've got, got lawyers that tell them they're in great shape. Well, guess what? The American Trucking Association has some lawyers that say, you know what, we've been discriminated against, so we're going to win this one. And there's a lot at stake for that trucking industry because if they lose here, truck toll exclusivity is going to be something that will grow all over America. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here.
A lot of national implications.
And I wonder, we haven't heard much from the federal delegation on this. They bring, Jack Reed did a good job of bringing home another $1.50 and millions of dollars to support some of this infrastructure stuff, but they don't weigh in much. Do you see yourself as a guy that would weigh in on what's going on here locally?
Yes, because look, I'm a Rhode Islander. I want to weigh in about state issues. I've done that out in Burrillville on the plant out there. And the reason why they're not weighing in is obviously Governor Raimondo is supporting this, and they're not going to do anything to contradict their fellow Democrat on her program with the tolls. So White House and Raimondo are joined at the hip on this and other issues, so don't expect that kind of pushback.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the recent jab that Bob has taken against Sheldon. Stay with us.
He will be stepping onto a Supreme Court, if he is confirmed, that has a pattern of very troubling, partisan 5-4 decisions that look terribly predictable in favor of big Republican corporate donors and Republican efforts in politics. And predictability is not a thing that the Supreme Court should be known for. It should be independent, and every litigant should believe they have a fair shot.
You have such a credible position to talk about these things, having been a state Supreme Court justice. Your take on Sheldon's take on the Kavanaugh nomination?
Yeah, I mean, I think absent some revelation during the hearings that is unexpected, I think he's a superb choice. I think he's a constitutionalist. He doesn't seem to invest his own personal preferences and policy choices into his decisions. He reads the Constitution the way it was written, and I think that's what you want from judges. Legislators should be concerned with policy. Judges should be concerned with carrying out the law.
Well, Sheldon, no doubt, is going to be throwing up the red flag on abortion. It's going to be a whole pro-life thing, and so I can see in your classic fall televised debates, this is going to be one of those things. How are you going to position yourself there?
Well, I don't think there's really any realistic probability or chance that a Kavanaugh confirmation of the Supreme Court is going to result in Roe v. Wade being overturned. I think there's no appetite for that. He said in the past that that this is settled law and he would follow that precedent. So, and I don't see that there's any real movement in America to do that. So I think it's a bogeyman. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that would be something that would be death to his nomination, obviously, if he were to take that position. But I don't think it's going to happen.
It's such a game. I mean, look, it's the third branch of government. There's so much at stake. But all the gamesmanship is more or less the same. The nomination is made without bias. It's only on capability. The hearings are all about judicial acumen and prior precedents and all that kind of stuff, and no predictability. And the Senate argues back and forth about who's in the bag for who, and it comes right down to who controls the Senate, to who gets nominated and finally approved. I think Americans just kind of like shake their heads, and although I will tell you the Supreme Court seems to be a pretty high awareness thing for the constituents. At least it was maybe in the Trump election period, right?
No, it's true. And I think many people think that the law should be just black and white. What's legal is legal, what isn't, it isn't. But there are so many ambiguities, even in our federal Constitution that has been around for over 200 years, that it gives a wide range of room for interpretation of what is due process, what's equal protection. And the difference between judges is some of them invest their own personal preferences and policy choices into the decisions they make, and others take a look at what was the intent of the framers and the folks who ratified it. And if we want to make a policy change, then don't just do it through judges, do it through an amendment to the Constitution.
I mentioned before, and we put up the screen earlier, about you getting after Sheldon White House. He and David Cicilline joined the Bernie Sanders crew in saying they're not going to take any PAC money anymore, Political Action Committee money for their individual campaigns. And you suggested, that's fine. What about the $3 million you've amassed doing so?
Right.
Do you think it's realistic to suggest that he should give that money back?
Well, I think if he's going to be consistent, it is. If it was bad for him to take any more of it, why isn't it bad for him to keep it?
What was the analogy you offered? Something about the bank robber? Or?
Well, the Willie Sutton, the theory. It's like Willie Sutton saying that now that he's amassed all his wealth from robbing banks, that, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to stop right here. I'm not going to give any of it back, but thank you. But that, to me, that's inconsistent. And if it was bad for him to take this corporate PAC money, then he should give it back.
You're not taking corporate PAC money?
No.
But it's hard out there, man. You're for the most part, you're raising money, what, locally?
Yeah, most of my contributions, like 80% of them, are Rhode Islanders. And
you're near $1 million at this point that you've accumulated?
Yeah. But on his part, most of it's PAC money and out-of-state contributions.
How does it feel to be out there asking for money all the time?
It's not fun. I'll tell you straight up. No one wants to ask people for money, but how else can you get on television and get your message out there? And that's what I'm doing. This is not a race about who raises the most amount of money. It's who's going to persuade the voters that they should be the most effective senator. And I don't need to raise more money than he does. I just have to get my message out there.
Yeah, all right. We'll talk about the message when we come back. And how burning is this desire for Bob Flanders to win this race? Stay with us. Bob Flanders running for United States Senate. It's been months and months since your announcement. Still have the same adrenaline?
Absolutely, Dan. I'm excited to do this for Rhode Island.
The product differentiation is such an important thing when it comes to, election branding, identification. Why him? Why not the status quo? Is it that Sheldon has done something so terribly or has been so consistently bad, or that you're going to bring some brand new thing? You have no controversy in your life, so you're not other than hell of a resume and a great story. What brings the light your way? What's going to happen here where people go, oh man, check out this Flanders White House race?
I think the distinction is I'm going to work with both parties to get things done. White House is a partisan warrior. I want to work with both sides. We got immigration, infrastructure, health care, among other issues that need bipartisan compromises.
You don't think that people here like his partisan warrior disposition and the role that he's played?
I think they're frustrated with both parties for the hyper-partisanship that we're seeing. Both parties are saying, this is terrible. We're not getting anything done.
You got to thread a needle with Donald Trump. I think you've been very practical when it comes to the president. This is a blue state with a Trump base, active, small. He's going to paint you. You go one way, you go one Trump direction, he's going to paint you as a Trump lunatic. All the script's predictable.
Right, exactly. But as I've said over and over again, I'm going to be behind the president when he does things that are good for Rhode Island, but I'm going to stand up to him when he doesn't. What's so hard about that to comprehend? That's the way it should be. And I'm an independent-minded person, was when I was a judge, you know that. I'm going to be the same way as a senator. I'm going to represent Rhode Island. That's what I'm doing this for. I'm here for Rhode Islanders, not for globalism, not for all the things that White House has become a Johnny One-Note about. I want to help Rhode Island. Was
there something, I don't think I asked you this question this way before, was there something that was in your gut or in your data or research that caused you to think, I can make this happen? Because taking on a two-time, or how many terms now, Sheldon? 2.5? At least this is his fourth election, right? Is there something you see that you're going to be able to exploit for legitimate constituent focus here?
Yeah, I think he's lost touch with the average concerns of Rhode Island. I hear that all the time. He keeps talking over. Who makes 214 speeches on one subject? Okay, it's important, climate change. I'm not denying it's an important subject, but there are other things than being a Johnny One-Note. People think he's out of touch with what they want to hear about. They want a senator who just isn't functioning on one cylinder. They want a guy and a gal who's going to work for them.
But do you wake up every morning going, we just got to get rid of that guy, or I need to get to the U.S. Senate? I think there's two different thought processes there.
Well, unfortunately, they're tied together. For me to get to the U.S. Senate, I've got to get. The voters have to vote him out of office. So they're part and parcel of the same thing. But Rhode Island deserves a better senator, and one who's going to be more effective, one who can sit at the table with this administration and bring home the bacon for Rhode Island. We don't have that now. We've got a monolithically Democratic group down there. Wouldn't it be good, as in the John Chafee days, to have somebody down there who could sit with this administration and advocate for our fishing industry, our defense industry, all the things, small business here in Rhode Island? My goodness. I want to work for job creators in Rhode Island, and this guy is not doing it.
Will you be asking the Trump political people for help in this race? Or you just letting them do their own thing, you're doing yours?
Well, I'm certainly looking for help from the National Republican Party, and he's obviously involved with that. But look, if the president were to come here, I would welcome him, and I don't think that's likely, but if he were, he's our president.
Well, any minute now, he's going to tweet political support in a race for somebody. Do you want to tweet?
I would take a tweet. I would take...
Take a Twinkie, I'll take a tweet, I'll take a whatever you want.
Of course.
Right.
I'm the endorsed Republican candidate, but as I said, I'm going to call it as I see it, and balls and strikes in the baseball vernacular. But sure, I'd like support from the national level.
All right. We'll have you back as many times as you need to. I'm sure you'd take up a Sheldon discussion here with me. I'm sure that'll be negotiated. By the way, have you negotiated debates with those guys at all? Are you talking with them?
Not yet. I'm sure we will.
I'm sure your goal is how many? Do you have a goal?
As many as we can.
Right. Anywhere, anytime, anyhow. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what the challenger always wants, and the incumbent. Let's sit on the clock.
Absolutely. You got it.
And run the North
As
Carolina
you say, it's all predictable.
The whole thing is predictable. And I'll leave you with this thought, and I've said it a million times. You would be a wonderful U.S. senator, but you can't be predictable in this race.
No.
Somewhere along the line, you're going to have to find a way to break out. I leave it up to you.
Yep.
But it's going to be key. Then again, September changes everything, right? It's a back-to-school disposition, and ought to be a fertile political season this fall.
Absolutely. Watch for the ads.
Good to see you. Oh, there are ads coming?
Oh, yeah.
Good. All right. Great to see you.
Great.
Don't be a stranger. We'll be back with the final word. Stay with us. The fall season does change everybody's perspective on the election, and I do think we're going to have an interesting debate between Bob Flanders and Sheldon Whitehouse. Whether the needle gets moved, hey, you know what? I've stopped predicting elections. Donald Trump changed that. When you're so wrong, you shut up and just let things play out, and that's what we're going to do here. Tomorrow, the state treasurer will be in to talk about money, I guess, because that's what the state treasurer is supposed to be focused on. Don't forget to tune in weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. You never know what's going to go on. Bye.